They promised me a birthday party. Friends, balloons, music, everything. But when I stepped into the living room, my stomach dropped. The decorations weren't mine. There was a giant banner. Congratulations on your graduation, Sarah. My birthday? Completely ignored. I forced a smile, hiding the sting behind my lips. Happy graduation, Sarah, my parents shouted together. The words were like knives in my chest. It's just a small celebration for you, Rashid, my mom said quickly, patting my shoulder. Small? My own birthday had disappeared, swallowed up by her perfect daughter moment. Sarah grinned, glowing in her cap and gown. She had no idea I was seething. Thanks. Isn't this amazing? She said, bouncing with excitement. Guests clapped, and I nodded politely. I could see them all, my friends and relatives, smiling at her. And me? Invisible. The chocolate cake in front of her was enormous. Mine, a small store-bought cake hidden in the kitchen, sat lonely on the counter. I walked outside, needing air. The cool breeze hit my face, but it didn't calm the fire inside me. I clenched my fists. How could my parents do this again? Every year it was the same. Favoritism. Always Sarah first. Always her accomplishments celebrated while mine were brushed aside. I needed a plan. I wasn't to scream or cry. That wouldn't fix anything. I needed to outsmart them. As I glanced back at the living room, my eyes fell on a pile of gifts stacked neatly for Sarah. Electronics, jewelry, gift cards. Gifts she didn't need but got because she was a golden child. Then I noticed one envelope sticking out. Her check from Aunt Mary for a large sum. My pulse quickened. If I played this right, I could make a statement they wouldn't forget. I went back inside and smiled, pretending everything was fine. Let me help with the gifts, I said. My parents barely noticed. They were too busy talking about Sarah's achievements. While they were distracted, I carefully slipped the envelope into my pocket. Heart pounding, I told myself to stay calm. The party continued. People laughed and chatted, unaware of my silent plan. I floated through the crowd, polite and cheerful. My friends asked, "Where's your cake?" I smiled faintly. It's okay. I'm just happy Sarah's day is special. Lies. But I needed them to trust me. Finally, it was time for the cake ceremony. Sarah's eyes sparkled as she saw the candles. Rashid, light them for me, she demanded. I nodded and struck a match. Flames flickered, casting a warm glow. I made a silent wish, not for gifts or revenge, but for justice. Sarah opened her envelope in front of everyone. A gasp escaped her. The check was gone. Where's my gift? Her voice cracked. Panic filling the room. Guests froze. My parents' faces went pale. Rashid, my father roared. I stayed calm, holding my chin high. Maybe it's better spent elsewhere, I said softly. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sarah's friends looked confused. My parents tried to recover, but the tension was thick. Then someone called the police, worried the missing check was theft. By the time the officers arrived, my parents were panicked. Statements were taken. Questions asked. Sarah cried, not because of graduation, but because her perfect world was unraveling in front of everyone. My birthday? Still ignored. But I felt lighter, like a piece of me had been restored. That night, I realized something important. Justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers, quietly, perfectly timed, leaving people stunned. And maybe, that night, I had finally made them notice me. The officers asked questions while my parents babbled excuses. We didn't. Rashid, explain, my father snapped. I stayed calm, letting the adults speak first. I could feel my friends' eyes on me. Some looked sympathetic, others confused. Nobody expected me to act so quietly, so deliberately. Sarah sniffled, her perfect facade cracking. I don't understand. It was right here. She held the empty envelope, shaking. Her friends murmured, whispering among themselves. I felt a small thrill of satisfaction, but I didn't gloat. I had to play this carefully. Losing control now would ruin everything. One officer turned to me. Rashid, do you know anything about the missing check? I nodded. I do. I found it. I was just making sure it got to the right person. My voice was calm, confident, and for the first time that night, I felt a sense of power. The officers looked impressed. "We'll need the envelope, please," one said. I handed it over. The officer checked the details and nodded. "It seems you did the right thing, protecting the money until it could be secured." Relief washed over me. Justice, finally. My parents were speechless, their mouths open and closed, words failing them. "Rashid!" My mother finally whispered, a mixture of anger and disbelief in her voice. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. My actions spoke louder than any shouting or crying ever could. Once the police left, the room felt different. Sarah sat slumped on the couch, her graduation dreams slightly tarnished. My friends whispered quietly to each other, some patting my shoulder, others shaking their heads. I caught a few of my cousins smirking, clearly impressed. I finally turned to my parents. "Do you see now?" I asked. My voice was steady, not shouting. "Every year, you've ignored me. Every year, it's been Sarah first. This isn't about a check. This is about respect. It's about noticing me, not just her." My father's face turned red, but he said nothing. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it again. The truth had hit harder than any argument. I didn't need them to apologize. Not yet. The lesson was delivered. Later that evening, my friends gathered around me outside. "Rashi, that was amazing," said one of them. "I've never seen you so calm and smart about something like this. You didn't yell, you didn't cry, you just handled it." I smiled faintly. Sometimes being quiet is louder than screaming. You don't need to be loud to make people notice you. You just need to act smart. My friends nodded, impressed. For the first time in years, I felt truly seen, not overshadowed by Sarah, not dismissed by my parents. But the night wasn't over. As we were cleaning up, Sarah stormed into the backyard, her eyes red from crying. "You ruined everything," she yelled. Her voice cracked, trembling with anger and embarrassment. "Mom, Dad, he stole my gift." I stood up slowly. "I didn't steal it," I said. "I made sure it didn't go to waste. Maybe now you'll understand what it feels like to be ignored." Sarah's face twisted in confusion and rage. She lunged at me, screaming, and I barely dodged. Her friends pulled her back, but the tension was palpable. For a moment, I thought she might hit me, but then she stormed away, muttering about how unfair everything was. I laughed quietly to myself. She had no idea that the real lesson wasn't a check. It was me finally standing up, and my parents, they were left speechless, realizing that their favoritism had consequences. The next morning, I woke up to find a small crowd outside. My friends had spread the story online. Messages flooded in. Friends, classmates, even teachers were congratulating me on how I handled the situation. It was overwhelming, but in a good way. For the first time, I felt recognized for who I was, not who my parents wanted me to be. By afternoon, my parents were trying to apologize. "Rashid, we're sorry." My mother said, tears in her eyes. "We didn't mean to hurt you." I shook my head. It's not about being sorry. It's about learning to notice others. You need to treat both of us fairly, not just Sarah. My father sighed. "We'll try, son. We really will." But even as I nodded, I knew they hadn't fully learned yet. They were embarrassed, yes, but lessons like this often take time. And Sarah, well, she had another storm coming when she realized just how many people knew about her meltdown. By evening, I felt lighter, happier, and for the first time in years, genuinely celebrated. Not because of my birthday, but because I had stood up for myself. I had found my voice without raising it, and that was the most powerful victory of all. As I lay in bed that night, I thought about the future. Sarah would likely try to retaliate in her own way, and my parents would be watching me more closely. But I had already won something bigger than gifts or parties. I had won respect. For myself, from my friends, and even from those who had overlooked me for years. And yet, just as I was drifting off to sleep, my phone buzzed. A notification from one of Sarah's friends. "You won't believe what she's planning next." My stomach twisted. Whatever Sarah had planned, I was ready. And for the first time, I felt a thrill, not fear, but the anticipation of the next chapter in this twisted family saga. The next morning, the house felt heavier than usual. Sarah barely spoke to anyone, moving silently like a storm cloud in the corner. My parents whispered to each other, casting occasional glances my way, clearly worried about what was coming next. I smiled quietly to myself. The balance of power was shifting. I decided to spend the day outside, needing fresh air. As I walked to the park nearby, I thought back to all the birthdays that had been stolen from me. Each one had been overshadowed by Sarah's achievements. An award, a party, a compliment. I realized something important. This wasn't just about a check or a party. It was about teaching my family that ignoring someone long enough will eventually backfire. At the park, my friends had gathered. "So what's the next move?" one asked. They knew my strategy was far from over. I shrugged. "Next move? Keep calm, keep thinking. Sarah will try to fight back. My parents will side with her if I make a mistake. So I have to stay 2 steps ahead." The truth was, I wasn't afraid. I had finally discovered a quiet strength inside me, the ability to act strategically instead of emotionally. And now, Sarah was the one who looked scared. Back at home, I noticed something strange. A few of her friends had been whispering in corners, giggling and glancing my way. Word had already spread about the check incident. People were on my side. That tiny realization made my chest swell. For the first time, it wasn't just me versus my family. There were witnesses who understood, who respected how I had handled everything. But Sarah wasn't done yet. That evening, as I was helping clear dishes on the dinner table, she suddenly slammed her hand down. "Mom, Dad, Rashid needs to be punished. He humiliated me." My father leaned back in his chair, exasperated. "Sarah, it's done. You've got your gift, your graduation. What more do you want?" "I want justice," she screamed. "He stole my money." I stepped forward calmly. "I didn't steal it. I safeguarded it until it could be secured. You just didn't think anyone would question you for once." Her face twisted in rage. "You think you're so clever. You're just lucky people didn't know about the rest of my gifts." I raised an eyebrow. "Do you really think anyone cares about more gifts? It's not the money. It's how you treated me. Every single birthday, every single time." My mother looked at me, her face finally softening. "Rashid," she began, but I cut her off. "No, you need to understand the full weight of this. Not just me being upset, but me finally standing up." Sarah stomped out of the room, muttering threats. I could hear her voice from down the hall. "I'll show him. He won't get away with this." I smiled faintly. Let her rage. I wasn't worried anymore. She was the one burning with frustration while I remained calm and steady. That contrast was everything. The next few days were tense. Sarah tried subtle attacks, spreading rumors, making snide comment about me in front of guests, and trying to turn my friends against me. But every time, I stayed composed. My friends, and even some of the extended family, began noticing the patterns. Favoritism had been a constant, and finally, someone had acted to correct it. One afternoon, my parents called me into the living room. "Rashid, we need to talk," my father said. I nodded slowly. "I'm listening." They hesitated. We didn't realize how much we hurt you." My mother said, eyes glistening. "We favored Sarah too much. It wasn't fair." I took a deep breath. "It's not just about me. It's about learning to see people for who they are, not who you want them to be. You need to treat both of us with respect. And you need to listen, not just act when it suits you." My father's hands shook slightly. "We'll try, Rashid. We promise." I nodded. Promises are good, but actions matter more. "I'll be watching." Sarah overheard this conversation from the hallway. She stormed in, her face red. "Watching? You think you've won? I'll make sure everyone knows what a terrible brother you are." I looked at her calmly. "Do what you want. But remember, everyone has been watching for a long time. Your actions have consequences, too." That night, I lay in bed reflecting. I realized the true victory wasn't just about the check or the birthday. It was about finally asserting myself, about showing that I mattered too. It was about respect, and about proving that you don't need to be loud to be noticed. The next morning, I woke to an unusual scene. The entire house was in chaos. Sarah had tried to prank me in revenge. She had moved all my things out of my room, replaced my alarm clock, even tried to hide my school supplies. But I wasn't surprised. I had anticipated her. I calmly retrieved my things, replaced her tricks with small notes pointing out her actions, and left them where she would find them. By lunchtime, my parents were exasperated. "Rashid, can you just ignore her for a moment?" my mother pleaded. I smiled faintly. "I am, but she needs to see how her actions affect others." Sometimes lessons need to be clear, and that's when the turning point happened. Sarah, frustrated and humiliated, accidentally revealed to our guests that she had tried to sabotage me. Gasps filled the room. My friends exchanged glances. Even some distant relatives muttered under their breaths. My parents' faces turned pale, realizing the embarrassment was fully on her. I finally felt a sense of relief. The balance had shifted. Sarah's rage no longer intimidated me. Her actions were now the source of her own downfall. My parents, finally realizing the truth, had no choice but to step back and reconsider their behavior. That evening, my friends gathered in my room. "You handled everything brilliantly," one of them said. "You stayed calm, clever, and didn't lose your cool. You've changed how everyone sees you." I smiled. Sometimes the quietest person is the most dangerous, if they know what they're doing. But just as I was about to relax, my phone buzzed. Another message from Sarah's friend. "She's planning something bigger. Be careful." I swallowed hard. Whatever she had in mind next, I knew I could handle it. I had learned the power of patience, planning, and clever action, and this time I wasn't afraid. The next morning, I woke to find the house quieter than usual. Sarah had retreated to her room, glaring at anyone who dared look at her. My parents were moving cautiously, clearly worried about what she might try next. I smiled to myself. Patience was my ally, and I could feel the tide finally turning. I spent the morning organizing my things, making subtle notes and reminders where she might see them. Nothing malicious, just little signs of awareness. Remember, respect goes both ways, and actions have consequences. It wasn't revenge. It was subtle accountability. By noon, a few of my friends arrived. "Ready for round two?" one asked with a smirk. I laughed quietly. "Not round two. This is the calm before the storm. Let her make the first mistake." And she did. That afternoon, Sarah tried her biggest stunt yet. She had invited some classmates over, planning to make me the target of their teasing. I could hear the whispers and giggles before I even entered the room. My heart raced, not with fear, but anticipation. I walked in calmly, smiling. "Hey, everyone," I said. "Glad you could come." The room froze. Sarah's friends glanced nervously at each other, sensing something was off. "What's he doing here?" Sarah hissed. "I'm just enjoying the party," I said lightly. "Seems like you planned it for me." Her face twisted with frustration. "You ruined everything. They were supposed to tease you, not..." But I interrupted her calmly, holding up a small stack of papers. "Actually, I documented everything you've tried this week. Moving my things, pranks, trying to humiliate me. I thought it'd be helpful for everyone to see how actions have consequences." Gasps filled the room. My classmates looked at Sarah, shocked. Even my friends were impressed. She turned red, unable to respond. My parents, who had quietly come into the room, looked stunned. I continued, my voice calm but firm. "I'm not here to fight or yell. I just want people to see the truth. Respect goes both ways. Treat someone poorly, and eventually it catches up to you." The tension was thick. Sarah's plan had backfired spectacularly. Her classmates, who had been ready to tease me, were now whispering among themselves, exchanging glances that clearly said, "She's in the wrong." That night, my parents sat me down. "Rashid," my father said, his voice low, "we've been unfair to you for too long. We see it now." I nodded. "It's not just about seeing it. It's about fixing it. About treating both of your children fairly and not letting favoritism dictate your actions." My mother wiped her eyes. We promise, Rashid. We'll try. We don't want to lose your trust. I smiled faintly. Trust is earned and it will take time. Actions speak louder than promises. Sarah overheard everything. She stormed past us, muttering threats under her breath. But I didn't flinch. I had learned a valuable lesson. When you act with calm intelligence, even rage can't touch you. The next day, I woke up to an email notification. My aunt had sent me a personal letter, praising how I handled the situation with grace and maturity. It wasn't about gifts or parties. It was about character. For the first time, I felt recognized not because of a birthday or school achievement, but because of who I was. By afternoon, Sarah's attitude began to change subtly. She no longer tried to humiliate me outright. She muttered complaints under her breath, but seemed to realize that the house had shifted. My parents were more aware of their actions, my friends had my back, and Sarah was losing control. But she wasn't done. That evening, she decided to challenge me directly. "Rashid," she yelled, slamming her bedroom door. "You think this is over? You think you've won?" I walked up to her room calmly. "I'm not here to fight, Sarah, but you need to understand that actions have consequences. What you tried this week only made people notice the truth about your behavior." Her eyes narrowed. "Truth? My friends saw nothing. They love me." I smiled faintly. "They love you for who you are, not for what you've done to me. And now, you've lost some of their respect. Maybe it's time you reflected on that." She froze, realization dawning on her. For the first time, she couldn't shout or manipulate the situation. She was powerless against calm, thoughtful action. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt a profound sense of victory. Not from pranks, not from gifts, but from reclaiming my voice. From showing that even when the world seems stacked against you, intelligence, patience, and courage can turn the tables. But just as I was drifting to sleep, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Sarah's friend. "She's planning something extreme. Be careful." My stomach tightened, but I didn't panic. Whatever she planned, I was ready. This time, I knew how to stay one step ahead. The next morning, I awoke to an unusually tense silence. Sarah was nowhere in sight, and my parents were moving quietly, clearly anxious about what she might attempt. I smiled faintly. The storm was coming, but this time, I was ready. I spent the morning preparing. Not pranks, not tricks, just careful planning. I had already documented her previous attempts, her words, her actions. If she tried anything today, the truth would be on my side. And for the first time, I felt confident that I could handle whatever came my way. By noon, she appeared, dragging her graduation robe behind her like a weapon. "Rashid," she shouted, "you've humiliated me enough. Today, you're going to pay." I stayed calm, leaning against the doorway. "Pay? For what? For making me realize I matter?" My voice was steady, unafraid. Her friends had gathered behind her, ready to support her. But as I stepped forward, they froze. The calm in my stance, the confidence in my words, had shifted the room's energy. I held the envelope containing her check, which I had returned to secure it properly. "I suggest you think carefully before acting," I said softly. "Your actions have consequences, Sarah, and you've already felt them this week." She lunged at me, furious, but I sidestepped smoothly. "Stop," my mother cried, panicked. "Rashid, don't provoke her." I smiled faintly. "I'm not provoking anyone. I'm just showing her the results of her own behavior." Her face twisted in confusion and rage. She had no idea that the room, the friends, even my parents, were all aware of her repeated attempts to harm me. Every step she had taken, every insult she had thrown, had been carefully noted. And now, she was cornered not by force, but by truth. The tension was unbearable. Guests watched silently, some holding their breath. Sarah's friends exchanged uneasy glances. Even my parents, who had been skeptical, finally realized that I had outsmarted her. I held up the envelope. "This is yours, Sarah, but only because it's supposed to be. The lesson here isn't about the money. It's about respect. You can't continue to treat people poorly and expect no consequences." Her voice broke. You don't understand. You're just lucky." I shook my head. "No, This isn't luck. It's patience, planning, and understanding that calm, intelligent action beats anger every time. She sank onto the couch, defeated. For the first time, she was silent. No shouting, no threats, just quiet. The house felt different, lighter, freer. I could feel the tension release. Slowly but surely, my parents approached me, hesitant at first. Rashid, my father began. We see now. We've been unfair. You deserve respect. I nodded. It's not just about being seen. It's about being treated fairly. Not because of a gift, a birthday, or an achievement, but because you're a person. My mother wiped her eyes. We promise to do better. You've taught us a lesson we won't forget. I smiled faintly. Good. Actions speak louder than promises. You'll need to show it, not just say it. Sarah, still slumped on the couch, looked up at me. You think this changes anything? She whispered, her voice almost small. I shook my head. It changes everything. Not because of punishment, but because now you've seen what it's like to be on the other side. To be ignored, to feel powerless, to face consequences for your actions. That's the real lesson. The following days were quiet. Sarah didn't try to sabotage me anymore. My parents were more attentive, more aware of their favoritism. And for the first time in years, my birthday felt like it belonged to me. Not stolen, not overshadowed, not erased. One evening, as I sat in my room reflecting, my phone buzzed again. A message from a friend. Everyone is talking about how you handled the situation. You didn't just offend yourself, you made them rethink everything. I smiled. That was all I needed. The revenge wasn't about chaos or pranks or even humiliation. It was about showing the truth in a way that couldn't be ignored. A week later, my parents quietly arranged a small belated birthday party for me. Just a few close friends, some balloons, a modest cake. Nothing extravagant, but it felt genuine. Sarah even helped, though silently, without complaint. The difference was clear. Respect had replaced competition. Calm had replaced chaos. And understanding had replaced favoritism. I blew out my candles and made a wish, not for gifts, not for revenge, but for balance, fairness, and for my family to finally learn the value of seeing everyone equally. As the cake was cut, Sarah handed me a small gift. I wanted to apologize, she said quietly. I didn't realize how much I hurt you. I accepted it with a nod. It's okay. Just remember this lesson. Treat people with respect, and notice them before it's too late. Later that night, I reflected on everything. The stolen birthday, the graduation party, the missing check, the police intervention. It had all led to this. A moment of clarity, of justice, of understanding. And then it hit me. Revenge isn't always about anger or chaos. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is subtle, perfectly timed, and leaves a lasting lesson. And in that moment, I felt victorious. Not because I caused pain, but because I had restored balance. As I drifted off to sleep, I smiled. My birthday had finally been mine. My voice had finally been heard. And the lesson for Sarah, my parents, and maybe even myself was unforgettable. If you enjoyed this story, please like and share it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more amazing stories like this.